Hey everybody, it's Ron Jackson, and I'm answering a question from one of my patrons, one of my big fans named Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been a patron for a few months, and he follows me everywhere, I think. And he had a big question about intervals, which are like the distance between two notes and how you name them. And distance between other notes and how you put them all together. And it can seem really complicated, especially if you never studied music theory. But I'm kind of used to this because I studied, theory since I was a kid. And basically, there's two ways to look at it. You have to look at it according to written theory. If you never studied theory before, it can be really difficult. And to your instrument, which on the guitar is a little different than from a piano, the way it's tuned and everything. So I actually wrote something out. I'm trying to explain this as best as possible by video because, it's really hard to explain when you're writing on sheet music and trying to make notation. So I decided to do a video accompanied with some sheet music I have in front of me right here. It's called Understanding Intervals on the Guitar. So one thing you have to understand about the guitar, I don't know, a lot of guitarists tune with tuners today like I have. But you have to really know how to tune the guitar the traditional way. So the guitar is tuned really a special ways. It's tuned like in fourths. So fourths are basically four notes away from another note, which is like 1, 2. Every just so you know, every fret starting with the open string and going up one fret at a time, it's called a half step. Okay, we call that a half step on the guitar. So every 2 frets is a whole step. Okay, which has a cool sound because it sounds like a whole tone scale. Okay, so that can be tricky. So that's the beginning of intervals, knowing that your half steps and whole steps, those are the most basic intervals, and then you add like another half step or whole step to each of those intervals. So you get all these different kinds of steps, but there's different names for all these intervals. So, but what's interesting about the guitar is I don't want to explain it in depth yet, but is that the guitar is tuned in fourths. So you have an E, A, D, G, and now the weird thing is you're gonna go down to a B, which is like not exactly a fourth. It's just actually a major third away. Okay, we call it a major third. So that's 2 whole steps. We call it, okay, and then you hit a B, which is open. So when you're tuning the guitar, it's the 4th fret. And then you have the E, which is another 4th. So B to E is actually a 4th. So that's the weird thing about the guitar. It's not quite tuned all in the same, what we call intervals. So if I did everything in the same interval, it would be like this. E, A, D, G, C, F. Which sounds really cool, I think, actually. And so you've got to know how to tune a guitar first and see how the strings work against the fingerboard. So you got to first learn how to tune a guitar. So usually we tune like the 6th string to my tuner, for example. Then you press on the 5th fret and you make sure that the open string 5, which is an A, okay, which we know is an A string, is the same pitch as the 5th fret of the 6th string. And you go to the 5th fret of the 5th string and make sure this note, which is a D, is the same note as this note, okay, which is the 4th string open, both the same notes, D. Then it's G, 5th fret of the 4th string, now open G, 3rd string, and then 4th fret this time, okay, and the 4th fret is the same as the open string B, and then the 5th fret of the 2nd string, which is called B, it's going to be an open string E. So that's how you tune a guitar. Now that's the tricky part. Now a lot of guitar players, once they get past a certain, especially if they never studied music, once they get past the 3rd fret, they don't really know the names of the fingerboard or the strings. So one of the things you have to learn about intervals is knowing the names of your strings and how you construct the notes on each string, okay? And then you'll start learning your intervals. So, but tuning is one of the reasons why I'm showing you how to tune the guitar is because if I'm playing this E string, this is an E note. So that's a hint. Now, that note, if I play up one fret, you play up one fret, it's this note here. So that's how you start memorizing your notes on the guitar. Okay, but that interval is actually called a half step, okay, between the E and F. Okay, that's one fret, I told you that earlier. So you start learning these things by memory, actually, eventually. So the thing that's interesting about the guitar is, like, if you hit the open string E, like this, and I press the 5th fret, okay, it's this note right here on the 2nd string. But then, if I go to the 7th fret, it's exactly the same note. Okay, so you got to memorize this now. The 7th fret is this note, and E here. And then when you go to the 14th fret, it becomes this. It's the same note as an E, and then the 19th fret of the 5th string is an E, and then if you have 24 frets, which I don't have as a guitar, I should have showed you on the other guitar. Okay, you actually have another E here. So these are all the same note. That can be really confusing for most guitarists. So that's one of the first things I like to show my guitar players, that you have to be able to find every double note that you can. So you can go to the F, etc. One fret at a time, etc. Okay, so you just practice like that. Then you go from the 2nd string too. Open. I didn't want to write all this out, so it's a lot to write out. See all the notes, all the B notes. So they're all the same notes. So what I'm trying to show you is this. So once you know the names and the relationships of the strings, then if I play up a note like this, then you can find the note like this, which is a half step, okay, what we call a minor second, okay. So you have to start understanding that concept when you're actually learning intervals on the guitar. Okay, now another thing is I wrote this second exercise where I took the 1st string and I played open, and I played one fret at a time. So I went to the 1st fret, to the 2nd fret, 3rd, 4th, etc. That's actually a vocal exercise too that I do with some singers. Basically, you go up in half steps so you stay in tune. So if I go up in half steps from each note, just so you know, intervals are relationships between each note and the distance. So this is the open string E. If I go up one fret, which is the 1st fret in this case, it'll be an F note, and we call that a minor second. Now if I go up one more fret, it's called F sharp. That's called a major second, okay? And then, the next note up is a minor third. Now that's, if you count, it's like 1, 2. You could say 2.5, but it's like, they call it another 2, but with a raised 2, which is a major second. It's not really a raised 2. And then the next note is a minor third, which is 3 notes away from the first note you hit. Okay, and this is still 3 notes away, they call it, but it's a half step away, so they call it a major third. Okay, so that's how you get all your numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you go up the scale, the major scale, that's a really important thing to memorize too. We'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just go up each interval from the 1st string up. So E to F is a minor second. E to F sharp is a major second. E to G is a minor third. E to G sharp, okay, is a major third. E to A is a perfect fourth, and then E to A sharp is called an augmented fourth, okay, or raised fourth, and then E to B is called a perfect fifth. E to C is a minor sixth. E to C sharp is a major sixth. E to D is what we call a minor seventh. E to D sharp is called a major seventh. Now E to E, we call it an octave or 8, okay? So you're actually going up the numbers of the scale, but the numbers of the scales actually starts with the major scale, okay? And the number system is very important when you're doing intervals as well, because then you know that if you're doing when people say like a sharp 9 or like or sharp 11 or sharp 4, it's actually going up the scale one note at a time. and you know, changing the note, which is the you know, of the major scale, changing one of the notes of the major scale, which is the mother of all scales. So basically, I just showed you all the intervals on one string, but you have to be able to do it on every string, okay? And you have to be able to do it backwards. So if I go, and then I went from the E down to here, backwards, it's called a minor second. The same way, major second, minor third. Okay, so it actually starts going backwards now, etc. See what I did? I just went completely backwards. It's the same intervals going backwards, okay? So that's the hard part of the guitar, is to memorize all these notes and know the notation and know all these intervals, okay? So the next thing to show you is the same thing, I mean, on all strings. You have to be able to do it on all strings now. You have to be able to go like this. So you understand on the same string how it works. Sorry. You have to be able to name the notes and say the intervals. Okay? And do the same thing on every string. Like the way we started with each note, every E note. Okay? And be able to play all those intervals and know them going up and then going back down. Okay? Now, here's the thing that you have to really know. This is the third explanation I'm going to show you about intervals. Now, we get our basic intervals are you know, from the major scale, which is the mother of all scales. So, for example, the C major scale is C. Every guitar player, I think, knows how to play this. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We call it the mother of all scales in Western music, okay? So, it's constructed in what we call whole steps and half steps, okay? Which a whole step, remember, is every 2 frets on the guitar. And a half step is, you know, just 1 fret between 2 notes. So whole step, half step. It sounds like Jaws. Whole step. Okay? Whole step. So if I go up a major scale, it's actually constructed in 1, a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, okay? So now it's easy to play it up and down the neck. Actually, it's easy to see. I don't know if it's easy to play. Okay, now the hard part is being able to play this across the guitar neck. So you can do it so many ways on the guitar. So that's the hard part about intervals and playing scales on the guitar. See how many ways I played that? So I played that scale, I don't know how many times, just 8 times in the same octave, the C major scale. And so, you know, that's one of the hard parts of the guitar. You have to be able to get to know how the relationships of the frets are across the neck like this and up and down the neck. So that's another exercise you have to work on. Now, the most important thing is knowing the intervals of the C major scale. First, we use the number system, especially in jazz, so we can get through these things much faster, okay? And that's how you get all your notes like this major 9. You count up the scale. So 1 is C, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and C is 8, which is the octave. So between each of these notes are intervals. Okay, from the C to the D is a major second, and then from the C to E is a major third. Then from the C to F is a perfect fourth. C to G, perfect fifth. C to A is major sixth. C to B is a major seventh. Now to the octave. You have to really know these intervals on the major scale because these are the natural intervals that happen in a major scale, okay? So if I lower the third, which is the major third, 1 fret, okay, like that, you make the minor third. So that makes a minor chord. So that's how you get your chord constructions now, okay? So if I do a C major chord, it's called 1, 3, 5, which is C, E, G. Now the intervals between each of these notes is 1, 3, okay, and then 5, which is, this is actually a major third. And then from this note, it's a minor third, okay? Now, a minor third on the guitar is 3 frets. A major third is actually 4 frets. 1, 1. So it's like 1, the first fret, well, the first note, then you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then a minor third is 3 notes away. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, okay? So that's a major third. So you have to be able to know intervals between each note that you're actually playing. So this is a major third. Okay, and then if I go up another note here to the B, where you make a major 7th chord, 1, 3, 5, major 7 chord, okay? And we call that a major 7th chord because that's naturally in the key of C. This is the major 7 we talked about earlier. Okay, this is the 5th. Now, if I want to make this a dominant 7th, we call it. A dominant 7 is actually a flat 7, so that's why you have to know your intervals in the major scale, because to get all your fancy jazz chords and everything, you have to lower, or raise certain notes of the original mother of all scales, which is the major scale. So if I want to play a C dominant scale, the C dominant scale has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. So I have to go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, no, B flat. So you get the dominant scale. Okay. If I want to play a C Lydian scale, it's a 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay. So you have to remember all these intervals now, as far as within the scale and the relationship between each note, between each note that you're playing. So if I'm playing from E to G, that's a minor third, but if I'm playing from F to B, that's a major third, etc. All this stuff is really experience and, just trial and error and practicing this over and over. You can't really learn this stuff overnight. It takes a lot of time. And when I'm playing, I don't even think about these notes. I know what they are, but I have to stop myself and say, I'll just like do math and say, oh, that's a minor third. Okay. Major third, etc. So I have to think about it because, all the different notes on the guitar are spaced differently, and it can be kind of tricky. Okay. So, so you have to be able to do these intervals backwards and forwards. Now, the thing is that's tricky about the guitar is learning how to play intervals across too. So I'm only going like this, like up scales. But if you want to say, let's say we're playing like a regular C chord like this. No, you have to know how to play your intervals like this and know what your intervals are. So I know that's a C to a G. So that's what we call a perfect fifth. So if I'm just counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect fifth. And then the next note is, so that's a C to a G, then a G to a C. A G to a C is a perfect fourth. And then the next note is a C to an E. So that's a major third. And the next note is an E to a G. So that's a minor third. But it's all a major chord, but the intervals between each note, between each separate note has a different interval between it. So if I go from this note, the C to the G, and I go C to the C, that's an octave. They call it an eighth. This is a third. Okay. But if you count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's a tenth also, but we don't really call that a tenth unless we went like this and play the notes like this. But these are really just thirds. This is just a third up an octave. Now, when you get to intervals in jazz or in all these fancy intervals with sharp nines and all that, it's basically just the intervals relationship from the root you're playing on. So if I play up C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C's 8. If I went up one fret, which is a flat 9, flat 2, it's really a flat 9 we call it. So It's because it's an octave higher from this D flat. But we counted up 9 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's usually D is a 9 naturally from the C. But if you make it a flat 9, it's basically D is an octave higher from the second note, which is a second, they call it, a major second. And so you make a flat 9 now, or a sharp 9. So, and usually these chords like flat 9s and sharp 9s usually go with dominant 7th chords most of the time. I mean, you could do it with a major 7, but it sounds weird. We're not used to hearing that. We're used to hearing this. We used to hear that sound better, but people use those sounds all the time. Sharp 9, the Jimi Hendrix chord. Regular 9, James Brown. See, I'm putting a 13 on top now. So if you would to know all your fancy intervals now, just so for my friend Ryan, my patron Ryan, who wants to know about this, or any other musician, it's just counting from the root. So if I say sharp 4, I raise the 4. If I say sharp 5, I just raise the G, which is a 5, 1 fret. 6 chord, major 7, major 9th. All these are from just really, it's all mathematical, everybody. From the root, all the intervals, everything from chords, it's all mathematical and works out. So if I want to play a chord in fourths, I basically play everything in fourths. C to F, and then to B flat. The way the guitar should be tuned, but it's not tuned that way. Okay, if it was all tuned in fourths, the fingerings would be really weird. That's why I was trying that the other day. I was thinking about, what if I tune the guitar all in fourths? Then if you do that, your chords get really weird. So if I'm playing, like, let's say I'm playing a C chord here. If these notes, if everything was in fourths, I would have to play these notes up here. So how would I finger that? It'd be really weird. There'd be some weird fingerings. And we have all these common fingerings that we're used to from the tuning we have on the guitar. So you have to start knowing the tuning of the guitar, knowing the chord scales, relationships, and all the intervals in between, knowing how the major scale is constructed, and your other scales too, but the major scale is the most important one because you usually alter all the notes of the major scale to make all these other fancy scales. So that's my basic explanation about intervals, and I'm probably going to put this up on YouTube as well. So if anybody has questions or anything, especially my friend Ryan here on Patreon, please send me a message or email me at ron@ronjacksonmusic.com, and I'm going to be posting this on social media everywhere. This is kind of a long video to put on Instagram, but on YouTube I could definitely put this up. But so this is my basic explanation of intervals. So you have to really know how the guitar neck is constructed. I mean the guitar string, excuse me, in standard tuning, which I forgot to mention at the beginning. So this is called standard tuning. Like E, A, D, G, B, E. I have my students say that fast. E, A, D, G, B, E, E. Sorry. So elephants are darn good banana eaters, for people who can't remember that. And this is your first string going down to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So you have to really know how to tune the guitar. You have to know how the frets are related. Frets are like go up in half steps basically, and you have to know how to do all the intervals. The whole tone, whole note, whole tones, and the whole steps, we call them half steps, 3 half steps, 4 half steps, whatever. They all become all these intervals, and you have to be able to do it frontwards and backwards, up and down, basically, across the neck. So it's really complicated. So I mean, it's just a lot of experience, and you have to get a good teacher to help you. And eventually, once you practice a lot, I'd say about 10,000 hours, then you'll know all this stuff. But in the meantime, join my Patreon if you're not a patron, and please share my page. And I'll see you guys very soon. I'm Ron Jackson, and I'll thank you for your time and for listening. And I hope you learned something about intervals today. Have a great night. There was no editing in this video. Yeah. Bye-bye.